everyone. This is the unknown profiler. Because he's the unknown detective, right? Anyway. Oh my God. What can I say? I was woken up this morning by someone who sent me an email, said, "Hey, have you heard about the new book coming out on Madeleine McCann?" And I'm like, okay, let me say this. I don't have a problem with a person putting out a new book on Madeleine McCann. Everybody has the right to do their research, to share their opinions. I'm all for that. This guy, whoever the hell he is, has the right to do that as well. And he's found a publisher, which I don't know what that publisher is. Maybe it's a fake self-publishing. I don't know who they are. But anyway, he's coming out with a new book. And I'm not saying you can't read his book. I'm not saying he doesn't have the right to put the book out. I'm just saying I have a lot of questions about this guy and the information he's going to contain in the book, present in the book. And I want to basically warn people about what I see coming down the pike with this, because so many people are already excited. Oh my God, it's a new book. It's going to break open the case, yada, yada. So I'm going to get into that. And before I do want to say hello to the people who are in the chat room. This is a public live, which I don't do. Well, I never used to do them, but I've decided to do some of these on breaking news because I do want to reach to a larger group of people for that purpose. So this is one of these breaking news things where I want people to be able to communicate with me. I want you to be able to ask your questions. And before I start, I want to say this. There are a lot of viewpoints on this case of Madeleine McCann. Some people believe that Madeleine McCann was abducted out of the Praia de Luz flat, or the vacation flat. They believe this. And if you believe this, it's okay. I don't take away people's, they have their own opinions, and they're allowed to have opinions. As Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse, opinions vary. And you're allowed to have yours. Some people not only believe she was abducted, they believe that Christian Bruckner, the suspect, the German prosecutor, has been pushing for God knows how long. They believe he is the one who kidnapped her, in their viewpoint. And then there's a second group who believe that Madeleine McCann was not abducted, but she died an accidental death on May the 3rd, or she was reported missing on May the 3rd, maybe on May the 2nd. She had an accidental death, and her parents were involved in covering up what happened to her. That's the second group. That is the group that I am part of, and that's what my analysis has always been, along with the detective on the case, Gonzalo Amaral. There's a third group that believes that there is a huge conspiracy out there, that she did not die accidentally. She did not die on the day that they were at the tapas bar, the McCanns and their friends. They believe everything happened way earlier. And it gets very convoluted. It gets full of all kinds of faking stuff. And I don't go with that theory. But I think this guy is pushing that because no one's put a book out with that theory. It's been all over the internet. As a matter of fact, many people truly believe that there's way more to this story than an accidental death and cover-up or an abduction. And they, again, have the right to that opinion. So what I'm asking you here is, since this is an open live to the public, please be respectful to everyone. Everybody has that right to an opinion. Please be respectful. Do not call people names. Do not call me names. And okay, I got to say this. Martina, or she says she's from Austria. I don't know how to pronounce your name in Austrian. But thank you for moderating. I've never had a moderator, but last time I did a live, there were some questionable things that were posted. So I'm very glad and very happy that you're willing to take on that role. And we've already had this discussion. It's like everybody is entitled to their opinion, but just be polite and don't say things that are, unfriendly, shall we say. Okay, so that's my little speech before I start, and welcome everybody who is in the chat room. Again, before I start, I want to at least do due diligence to my own channel. This is an educational channel. I strictly stick to that. I try to stay away from massive gossip and exploiting cases to the nth degree to make money. I do analysis, crime scene analysis and criminal profiling of different cases to help people understand how this is done. People who want to get into law enforcement, people who are in law enforcement, people who are regular folks who just want to understand things, how things logically work. So I stick with that, which is one reason I do not have super chat. You will notice there is no super chat. I always say it makes you feel like a stripper. People just throwing money at me, you know. And I don't like that. I find it disruptive, and I don't do it for any kind of live show. If you really want to contribute to the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. One way is to join Patreon. Patreon is $5 a month. I only have one level. I do 8 lives a month. 4 are case analyses. I do one every weekend on a specific case. And then during the week, I do a hangout where you can come and people give me ideas of things they want me to discuss, and we do that. It is a very nice community. I don't need a moderator. We have a lovely time, and it supports the channel, and that really makes a difference. There's also, you can just subscribe to the channel. That helps. Hey, subscribers help. And you can get every one of my videos for free. You don't have to pay for anything. Every one of my videos is available to the public. Click on the bell for notifications so you can find out what is coming up. There are other ways to support the channel. One is buying books below, and another is there's a little $, which I don't know if it's available when the live is going on, but later on for everybody else, yes, there's a little $. You can click and you can donate. But I don't do super chat. So I wanted to buy the Lexus, but I guess I'm not going to get to do it. Okay, so that's my spiel on that. Now, let's get to the issue of what is going on here. All right. Let me just read you from metro.co.uk, who unfortunately put up this information. It says here, a new book on the missing tot, Madeleine McCann, will claim she is dead and point to the place where her remains are very likely hidden. Okay. You know, when people do, when the media out there in the world does stuff like this, it annoys me because a lot of people believe in the media, MSM, as being purveyors of the truth, that they're putting the truth out there, that they've done their research. They don't, no, that doesn't happen anymore. They hear something, they throw it out there, and they make it as exciting as they can. Portuguese publisher Modocromia, who I have no idea who that publisher is, by the way, is preparing to launch the near 800-page book. Okay, that's your clue right there. Do you really want to read 800 pages? I do not. If you can't make your case in less than 800 pages, you're full of hot air. Okay, so you can go to the police files. You can do that. The Portuguese police files. That's online. You want to read a whole bunch of pages of stuff? Go to the source. Don't get his version for 800 pages. I don't even know what the 800 pages is including. But anyway, and he's going to put the book out on May 2nd, which is one day before she was reported missing. The Lisbon-based firm, says it is keeping the name of the author under wraps for the time being, and is only referring to him as a foreign detective. Oh, God. That has the word grifter all over it. I'm not calling him a grifter. I'm just saying, when you show up on a talk show, and I linked that below, he has a little, you got to look at it. Click on that, and he comes on a talk show, and has asked a few questions about the book. They show a promo, which shows him standing on the cliffs going, the truth. And his name is unknown, but he's the foreign detective. If you got to do that stuff to sell your book, I'm going to say your book is garbage. Because if you can't show your face, say your name, and be professional about it, I think you look like a grifter. Not saying you're a grifter. I'm saying you look like one. So this whole interview is so unbelievable. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. First of all, don't have grifters on your show. Oh, I'm not saying he's a grifter, but don't have people who look like grifters on your show and promote them. Now, people are going to say right now, well, Pat, you haven't even read his book yet. Well, of course not. It's not out yet. But I want to warn you before you get there that what I'm seeing as a professional profiler is don't trust this guy. Don't trust what he's going for. And if that book costs an arm and a leg, which I'm going to say it probably does, don't give him your money. Don't give him your money. And I'm going to go into why I think what he's about to put in his book or has put in his book and is going to claim is the truth, because this bothers me right here. As a professional profiler, I have never said that my profile is the truth. I have said that this is the way I analyze the crime. From the evidence that I see, evidence supports this, and that. But he's coming out with this whole, the truth. Anyway, the English-speaking investigator has given a bizarre interview. Well, at least they said bizarre interview, which is true, ahead of the book's official presentation, wearing sunglasses, a black hoodie with the word truth emblazoned on the front. He told host Dietmar Getz on a show called Nightly Private Talks Only, broadcast on YouTube, that his discoveries during a years-long, he said he started in 2017, investigation were a game changer. He said he was sure Madeleine was dead before adding, the truth will come out with this book. The case will be solved and Maddie's remains will be found. If you can believe those three things, you might be a fool. I'm going to be honest. You might be a fool. When people say stuff like that, it's ridiculous. Now, mind you, let me go back on who's been involved in this case and who's written about this case for years. All right. We have. All right. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. On the left, you will see Gonzalo Amaral, the detective on the case. He wrote The Truth of the Lie. That's the English version of that. You can find that on the internet in various places in English, so that you'll be able to read it in English if you can't speak Portuguese. He put his book on the market, and he was attacked by the McCanns. They said he libeled them, that what he said was lies in the book. His book was pulled off the market. Gonzalo went through absolute flaming hell in his life due to that lawsuit. He finally won. Years down the way in all the courts. He finally won, and his book is back on the market. He supposedly has got a second book, which I hope he puts out. And by the way, this is me with Gonzalo. I met him in. I went to Portugal. We had a lovely dinner together. We were discussing putting out a book together, an English version book. My publicist, my literary agent. My literary agent went. It was called The Madeleine Mystery. It was going to be the name of the book by the two of us, and we couldn't get one English anybody who sold English books. They were not willing to touch it due to the Carter-Ruck situation. They felt they were going to be nailed with the lawsuits after what happened with Gonzalo, so no one would touch it. I also put out a book. Profile on the right, you see Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. I put that out, and it was out for 3 weeks on Amazon when the McCanns went after me, and they went after Amazon, and they told Amazon they would sue them for libel if they didn't pull the book, and Amazon, fearing that, pulled the book. People will say, why did they do that? Amazon's terrible. No, they're just rational. My book is $2.99 in a self-pub because I couldn't get a publisher. And therefore, I was right under Kate's new book, right? Madeleine. It was right underneath. And it was actually doing very well in those 3 weeks. And they didn't like that fact that when people went to look at Kate's book, they saw my book and they were buying my book to see what maybe I had to say. And so Amazon's like, it's a $2.99 book. We don't have lawyers. She published self-pub through us, but it wasn't vetted by lawyers. So, we're not going to take the hit on this. So they just pulled the book right off the market. And so you can't get that book anymore at Amazon. You can get it elsewhere on Kobo, Apple, and those places. But I'm going to tell you to hold off because I am doing an updated version of that book because I went back. I'm going to put out I was going to do this on the anniversary, May 3rd. I put out an audio version on YouTube. It'll be free. I'm going to read my book. It's short, so I'm going to read the book. And I went to read the book, and I realized that some people who had told me I needed an editor when I wrote the book, I kind of thought they were right. I'm like, oh man, I gotta rewrite this book. So I have been working on redoing the book. It's the same book, but I'm going to update it and edit it to a better quality. So that is going to come out. I was going to put it out on May 3rd. This is coming out on May 2nd. Maybe I'll move it up if I get it done. So that book, don't buy it now if you want to look at that book. Just wait a month and buy the new version, $2.99, not on Amazon, but every place else. And also, I will do the audio version. That will be on YouTube, and that will be free if you don't want to pay $2.99 or you don't like to read. So I'm going to put that out. But yes, my book got pulled too. So Gonzalo and myself, he is the detective who worked the case. And I am a criminal profiler who has analyzed the case for years. And yes, we both know what the Portuguese police files have in them. So what does this guy have to add? Oh, wait, one more thing. I just want to point this out. I did have this other book out, which Amazon left up there, which is kind of funny. It's called 10 Missing and Murdered Children's Cases That Have Nothing to Do with Madeleine McCann. It's 99 cents. I had to put up some number on it. And the people who understand about the Madeleine McCann case, who think that something is fishy about what happened to her and how she disappeared, love the book, and they get the sense of humor in it. They understand that actually the entire book is about Madeleine McCann, but I'm comparing it to all the other cases that didn't get any kind of play the way Madeleine McCann did. And the people who are on the other side think, what the heck? You said this was cases had nothing to do with Madeleine McCann. You keep mentioning Madeleine McCann. So they didn't get my little dig in there that Scotland Yard and the massive amount of money and publicity that went to Madeleine McCann should have been also shared with other missing and murdered children's cases. But anyway, all right. So now about this guy. Let's go a little further with him. All right. He says, what does he say? The house of cards will fall with this book, and it will be revealed by those who buried her. But yes, there is a very high probability I know where that is. You and nobody else. Okay. I have a particular viewpoint of where I think Madeleine may be, based on the pings from Jerry's phone. There is a place called Monte Jose Mestre. Monte de Jose Mestre. It is just slightly west of Praia de Luz, and his phone pinged on that road. There's a sign that says Monte. That actually is a sign on the side of the road, and you can go up there, and it's a very desolate area that has some windmills up there, lots of empty space. I'll try to remember to link that below from my blog on that. I thought that was a very reasonable place if you were trying to bury a body. That was a very reasonable place to do so. I don't claim that I know where she was buried. I'm just saying that's an interesting location, considering where Jerry's phone pinged and that he had the vehicle that day, and it's a very isolated. And look, I found it really quickly, so he could have found it as well. I don't know that they'd ever go up there to investigate. I keep saying, well, one day if they decide to build a housing collection up there and they start digging up the land, you never know. But I'm not going to claim I know where she's buried. He said that he has contacted police but did not receive a response. Okay. Before going on to describe chief suspect Christian Bruckner, currently being tried in Germany on unrelated sex crimes, he allegedly committed on the Algarve as a scapegoat. Okay. Sometimes you agree with people that you think are putting out questionable material. He's not wrong on everything. He's just, so I agree with him. Christian Bruckner, the German suspect that the prosecutor up there keeps claiming is guilty, but can't come up with a shred of evidence. Yeah, I do agree. He's a scapegoat. The interview is being used by the Portuguese publishers planning on releasing the book to promote it. But it was not immediately clear where and how the book will be sold. Maybe because a really teeny-weeny publisher. I don't know who the hell they are. A spokesman for Modocromia, probably another guy without a name, said copies would be made available in English and Portuguese during a press conference launch on May 2nd at the Villa Gale Hotel in Lagos. All right. The publisher said in a marketing blurb for the book released yesterday, a 7-year investigation has come to an end and shocking new evidence will be revealed, including the new timeline and actual time of death of Madeleine McCann, where Maddie was hidden for weeks and where Maddie's remains are very likely hidden. Now, I have always said that I believe Maddie's body was put someplace for a while, and that is on, I believe, the cliffs of the Roja Negra. When you come down the beach, there are these just the way the Roja Negra comes down, there's these areas where you can climb up, and they're very sandy, and you could easily put a body there, cover it, and leave it there for a while, come back, and then move it to another location. It's possible, and that is a theory. I don't know if he's got the same theory. Maybe he read my book. I don't know. But, and then, okay, so then it goes on. The idea, the new timeline I'm going to get into in a minute. In a statement on its Facebook site, it added Modocromia Publishing has signed a contract with the foreign detective to publish a book that tells the truth about the Madeleine McCann case. A contract, well, I hope he didn't get a big advance. So anyway, okay, there we go. So there does say here the Madeleine McCann's parents lost a legal battle against Gonzalo Amaral. The couple took him to the European Court of Human Rights after years of litigation in his homeland over the book, which accused them of covering up Madeleine McCann's accidental death. The court upheld a freedom of expression decision by Portugal's Supreme Court in September of 2022. Okay. Now, I'm going to say a very quick thing. I'm going to go to some of your comments and questions, but again, please be polite. If you have a question, please ask it, and ask it in a way that I can answer it, you know? So anyway, this is what makes me suspicious. He's changing the timeline. And he says this, that the Smith sighting is irrelevant. And right there, I about lost my mind. I'm like, okay, I have issues with you. And when he said he changed the timeline, I knew where he was going with it. First of all, I would like to recommend that you watch the 5 main clues in the Madeleine McCann case. This is actually I think this was the first video I even did on YouTube. So apologies for whatever quality it is. But it's still, the information is still valid. The 5 main clues in that case. And one of them is the Smith sighting. And the reason the Smith sighting is, well, I will say that is the number 1 clue. The number 1 clue is the Smith sighting. I actually had a lot of desires to write a book, but I kept holding off because I wanted to know what the McCanns, I had seen the, interviews and all the other stuff. I wanted to know their absolute thoughts. Then when Kate McCann came out with her book, Madeleine, that was the thing that helped me then go to write the book. Because in that book, she answered the big question I had about the Smith sighting, which was what? That she came up with all kinds of excuses why they didn't give the Smith sighting any credibility. So in other words, they were totally into the Jane Tanner sighting, which they love, because when Jane Tanner saw this mystery man carrying off a child, which later on was, there's a whole another thing on how Andy Redwood came out and said, oh, that was years later, that was just some guy carrying a child off back to their vacation flat in the wrong direction and wearing clothes, and he still had the clothes from that night. It's a whole thing was so nonsensical. But the McCanns wanted that sighting to be the sighting. Why? Because Jerry was out on the street chatting with Jez at the time, that Jane claims as she's walking up this very tiny street, she saw them talking. They didn't see her, but she saw them, and she saw this guy carrying away a child. Jez and Jerry didn't see the guy or Jane. So how the heck all of them got missing on that tiny little street and missed each other? I don't get. Jane just saw everything. And then she didn't tell them about it for a really long time. And Kate forgives her because, oh, well, what? She didn't immediately tell you, I thought I saw somebody carrying your child away, and just so you could go find her? But so why would Kate, I wouldn't even be friends with Jane anymore if that were true. She waited to tell me when those minutes were so important that I could save my child. But you just didn't get around to telling me for a long time. There's no forgiveness coming. But, oh, no, Kate's really, oh, okay, it's okay. I understand, Jane. And they're still buddies. But the Smith sighting, which was just about 45 minutes later, was seen by an entire family of people. a guy walking down the street toward the beach carrying a child that relatively looks like Madeleine and looks a lot like Jerry, which Mr. Smith said later. So, well, it looks like Jerry, and that was a description matched. Not that it is Jerry, mind you, but the McCanns did never push that sighting. And if it were my child, any parent of a missing child, they don't know which way which sighting would have been right. They would have pushed both of them. And if that guy carrying away a child happened to look like my husband, I would say, look, that's not my husband, but whoever looks pretty much like my husband, find that guy because he might have my kid. I would even throw my husband under the bus to find my child. But hey, as it is, Jerry supposedly has an alibi, so why even worry, Kate? So anyway, but they ignored that sighting for pretty much, they finally said a little bit about it to try to backtrack, but they ignored the Smith sighting. And if that were if my child went missing and anybody saw anybody carrying off a child at this time, they could have carried off the child, I would have been all over it. And the only thing she said in her book was, well, that could be a guy carrying off Madeleine, but only if it's the same guy Jane saw and he like ducked into an alley for like a good long period of time for no reason whatsoever and then popped back out at the time the Smiths saw him. That's the number one clue. And he's now saying it's irrelevant. Irrelevant. So why is Kate so uninterested? Why are the McCanns so uninterested in the Smith sighting? They should have been, regardless of if it were irrelevant, because they wouldn't have known that. So they should have been all over that, and then later on maybe found out it was irrelevant and I'll been all, oh, dang, But the fact that they didn't care about that sighting makes it very relevant. And you're saying it's irrelevant? So I'm like, why is that? And I'm going to tell you why. Because he's changed the timeline. There are a whole bunch of people who believe that Madeleine did not disappear that night, either by abduction or by having an accidental death and being removed from the vacation flat. It's a bunch of people being pushed by a bunch of people who love conspiracy theories, pushing her death of her back in time. And then then the McCanns have got everybody involved in the Tapas. He says the entire Tapas group is involved. And she's ending up being killed earlier in a sexual assault, or she never really existed, or she was sold. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff, in my opinion. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't use the word crazy. Interesting stuff. And then to be able to prove this, there's claims about photos being changed and all kinds of stuff. And because Scotland Yard did not handle this case properly, which he does point out, and he's correct about as well, that they were given a remit to not look at this as anything but an abduction, and wasted 20 million pounds by now. It's insane. So definitely there was an effort by the government not to pursue the truth. Why that happened, I think it's more a political issue than it's like the entire government is full of pedophiles, and they're all supporting Jerry because he's a Mason, and there was a whole child pedophile ring and all that kind of garbage. I don't buy any of it. And I think that's where he's going, because he knows there's this fascination with mysteries, fascinations with conspiracy theories. So he's going to write 800 pages of nonsense to convince you that somehow there's this big, huge conspiracy theory. And it wasn't a simple accidental death that was covered up by a couple of parents who were like panicked that they were going to go to jail, lose their children, lose their lives, their professional lives. And they did what they had to do. If you believe that version, which is where I think the evidence points to, but he's going to go on all this nonsense, and I find it despicable, quite frankly. If you really believe this stuff, stop, say who you are, take the stupid stuff off, stop playing your silly games, and I don't buy any of it, and I just recommend you don't waste a whole bunch of money on his whatever diatribe he's going to come up with. Okay. Anyway, that's my basic thoughts on this. Now, I will try to comment on some concepts. Marilyn Monroe basically OD'd. There's no reason anybody had to kill her. Yes, that's just true. Okay, here we have the Dumb Ranger guy here, and this is where This is okay. We're going to put. I don't know where my. I'm going to put him in. What? See, not Brown. The police confirmed in Portugal that parents are innocent. No, they never did that. That's absolute nonsense. I'm going to ban user and delete all of the comments. This is the kind of nonsense stuff. The police have never excluded them. They shelved the case due to all the issues that were going on. They have never cleared the McCanns. This is not true. They've never declared them innocent. That's a lie. That's a lie. There is a huge political muck mess. And so no. So there you go. This is where people get off on the special privileges crap. And Prince Andrew, see, this is all nonsense stuff. Stop going there. There has never been a shred of evidence that the McCanns have any kind of privileges with the government. It's just nonsense. And don't go there unless you can support that with any kind of evidence, and you can't. What is true is, from what I see, a huge political battle came between Portugal and England, as far as that the British couple was there, things happened, and the Portuguese did whatever, and it became in the beginning, it's like, hey, the Portuguese are trying to do bad things to us, and then they got political people to jump in and the media to jump in, and it all became a big, huge cauldron of stuff. And if you would only understand how things work in the real world, a lot of times things aren't as straightforward as you think, like this person controls all this power and no, it's a bunch of different people with egos and agendas and money-making ideas that they can jump in and get something out of it. And they sometimes all come together to create a bunch of nonsense. The media did get sued crapless in the beginning by the McCanns for actually saying they thought they were guilty. And then once they lost, the media lost, and then the media just turned on a dime, and now everything they do is, oh, pro McCann, they're just wonderful, the poor child was abducted. The media went there. I was no longer allowed to speak on any national media. Even Nancy Grace, who was a regular, I was on her show like 3 times a week for like over a decade. I couldn't talk about this case on her show. Why? Because they had changed their focus. Their agenda was now to make her an abducted child because that's where their money lay and they weren't going to get sued. So the media played a part in why things went the way they did. Why Scotland Yard went that way, I think, was a battle between them and Portugal and the whole European Union and all kinds of other weird stuff. And then once they got invested in it, protecting their own people, saying, hey, Portugal should be accusing our people of a crime, they put the remit out and they spent all their time doing absolutely nothing useful for the next decade. But that doesn't mean that the detectives, everybody in there wasn't like a Mason, and for some reason Jerry McCann is being protected. But how is he being protected? So they say this whole big pedophile thing is just not true. There's not one shred of evidence this child was ever sexually abused. And I see no evidence she wasn't a happy child. I see no evidence, all this phony stuff about Madeleine McCann. Madeleine McCann was a child, I think, was loved like the other 2 children. What I do think is that the 2 parents were quite selfish people. And I think I could go with personality disorders on both of them. But they went on this vacation. Their children were having a good time with, they did put them in the creche. The kids were involved in different things. People say, why did they spend the whole vacation with their kids? Oh, because they wanted a break. Come on, guys. So we all have different kinds of vacations. I always spent the vacations with my kids and never put them in any kind of babysitting facility. But my granddaughter was just over in Italy with her. She's 10. She's with her mom and dad and another couple. And there's a bunch of pictures where they're all out having wine. And I'm pretty sure that, I know that they hired a sitter for their kids back at the hotel, at the Airbnb, because they all wanted a break from their kids. They were with them all day long. So the McCanns had her and her siblings involved in some fun activities. And of course, they had their times when they went to the beach together and they ate together and all that. But in the evenings, they left the 3 children unattended in the vacation flat and went out drinking at the tapas bar. That was wrong. That was neglect. And I don't believe for a minute they left any of those doors unlocked. They locked them all, which is why I know nobody ever entered that place. They locked them all thinking that if those children slept, they were just, well, they couldn't see the place. They couldn't hear what was going on. They were far enough away, but they were saying, oh, every half an hour or hour, one of us would walk back, which just takes, yeah, it takes a bit of time, but not long. Like I walked that from myself. It takes what, 6 minutes or something, 5 minutes to walk it. Yeah, okay. And you walk back in, unlock the door, go in, make sure the kids are still sleeping, and leave. I would never do that. It's not like you're in the backyard of your house like they try to claim. You're in the garden and the kids are inside sleeping in your house. No, that's a lie. That's not like that at all. Because first of all, your kids have to know where you are, and these kids weren't old. They couldn't find them, and they weren't old enough to make a phone call. So they left these children unattended under the age that they were, 3 and 2. Is too young to be left unattended. And they could have paid somebody to stay with them, but I don't know why they didn't. They just thought it was okay. And that belief is because she did say her siblings cried, that they medicated their siblings so that all 3 of them, so they'd sleep. And then they would have to worry less about them waking up and getting into trouble. And that's where the belief that something went wrong with Madeleine in that process. But it is every piece of evidence, if you're going to get rid of the abduction thing, which there's no evidence of, points toward nothing went on before that night. It's not like Madeleine was murdered or sexually assaulted and sold or whatever. And then they faked everything, got rid of her before then. And then that night they all went out and went to the tapas and drank and pretended Madeleine was still alive. And then, oh, shocked, they found her dead. No, this is just nonsense. They thought she was alive when they left to go to the tapas, at least as far as they knew. And they went back to check on her. And one of the checks, I believe, Jerry went back and found that she was not alive, that she was behind the sofa, had died by positional asphyxiation or the drugs or whatever, and found her there and said, oh my God, what the hell do I do? The scenario that makes most sense is that then he picked her up and had to take her someplace to remove her from the flat and put her someplace while they figured this out. And that's what he did. And then when he went back to the tapas, Kate went up and found Madeleine missing and eventually found out what happened. That's what it points to. The evidence tends to support. That's what Gonzalo Amaral thinks. That's what I think. But he's going to go back on the conspiracy theory stuff because so many people want to believe in that stuff. They want to believe there's this massive, crazy stuff going on. And I don't buy it, neither did Gonzalo Amaral. And you can either believe the investigator on the case and a professional profiler or some freaking weirdo sitting there in a black outfit, a mask with a ridiculous statement across his chest. I'm not saying you can't read his book. I'm not saying that, and I might buy it just so. The last time there was a book that came out, I said, I'm reading this book so you don't have to. I may pay the money to read his book so I can tear it to shreds because I know I'm going to, not because he couldn't have some correct points. And if there are correct points, I'll point them out. But I don't like people who, I'm not going to say the word grifter. I don't like grifters. I'm not saying he is a grifter, but he surely is appearing like one. And I don't like them because I think they take advantage of people for their own purposes. And it appalls me. And it also, one of the things it's going to do, one of the problems people have that don't understand how things work is that they want to go on the conspiracy theories, they're crazy on that stuff. It makes the people who believe Madeleine McCann wasn't abducted, including the detective on the case and myself, it makes what seems like more rational people who can approach the media and put out proper information. It conflates the two. And now people say, oh, any of those people that think Madeleine McCann wasn't abducted, they're nutcases. They're those people that think there's a big, huge conspiracy. They conflate the two. And it harms what is rational thinking about the case. It harms the people who are trying to at least say, hey, don't believe Christian Bruckner it did anything with Madeleine McCann. At least we don't see evidence that he did. We're trying to be rational about it, but with all the crazy other stuff out there, it doesn't make anybody look good who believes that Madeleine McCann was not abducted. And so this kind of stuff is just harmful to the whole conversation, in my opinion. All right. So I got rid of Rangers. Let's see. Okay. Again, be polite. Be polite. Well, wearing a costume is not a good way to promote yourself as a professional. If he has something useful to say, and let's say he really does have something useful to say. This is not a good way to approach it. I'm looking at you thinking you're a clown before I even start looking at your book. You're a clown. Don't do this. This is just stupid. It makes you look foolish. It makes me not believe anything you're going to say from this point on. But why is he doing it? You might ask. As a profiler, I would say this. He knows his book is what his book is. There's probably a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. And the only way he's going to promote this book is by doing something really cool. Because he can't simply come on and say, look, I wrote a book, I analyzed the stuff, and here's my information. He doesn't think he's going to make money that way. He doesn't think he's going to get people to read it. So he's doing a whole act here to get gullible people, please don't be one of them, to spend a lot of money on the book. Now, I promise you, I will promise you this. I will buy his stupid book. I will buy it. Hopefully, it's not going to be a ridiculous price. I have bought other people's books just to analyze them. I will buy his book, and I will then do another video where I dissect his book. So you don't have to pay for it. Now, after I dissect his book and tell you what he's saying and what I'm thinking is true and what I think, I go through how he can prove where Maddie is buried, how he knows there was an earlier timeline, blah, 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 and how the Smith sighting is no good. After I go through all that and analyze it, I will put that in a video. After you listen to my video, if you don't agree with me or you think he's got a point, then you go spend the money on the book. But please, let me save you some money. Yeah. Okay. I'm a little pissed off this morning. This case so frustrating in the sense that there's when I wrote that the 10 missing and murdered children's cases have nothing to do with Madeleine McCann, I actually mean that. It bothers me that they haven't solved the case doesn't bother me nearly as much as all the nonsense that came after. Madeleine McCann lost her life in Portugal for one reason or the other, and it would be nice to have justice regardless. I'm okay with that. And I want that. But the amount of money spent on one case compared to all the other children in the world who are just as dear and loved as this child was, or at least by some people, they deserve the same kind of attention. But it all goes here. And at this point, people just want to know what is the truth, but they ain't coming from this dude. I can guarantee you. The timing of this seems strange with the German court case ongoing, or am I being cynical? No, I think it's what it is it's prominent. When she becomes prominent in the news, this is the time to strike to make money. I'm going to say he's mostly after money and fame, mostly money, probably. I don't know what his book is going to cost, but mine was $2.99. I'm going to guarantee his isn't going to be $2.99. 800 pages. I'm going to say it's going to be a $25 book, $30 book. And he's hoping he's going to make money off of this. But with his big mystery, and I've solved the case, blah, blah, blah. Because so many people want this case to be solved, they will buy anything. That's why psychics roll out and do the same thing. Psychics know where her body is buried. Psychics know this, psychics know that. People will pay money for that stuff because they want to know the truth. But they go to people who will never tell you the truth. Because once a person starts saying that garbage, you got to question what they're actually after. Oh no, Linda, they're not going to sue him. Are you kidding me? No. They're going to love what he puts out. Do you know why? Because it's going to be so ridiculous that this is exactly what the McCanns want. Because the more stupid the people look that believe there was no abduction and the McCanns were involved, the stupider they look, the happier they are. That's why the McCanns haven't gone after certain people, because they're like, hey, they're so ridiculous, or we're going to let that one go because it will make people who think we're guilty of something. It's going to make those people look foolish. So no. Oh, okay. Rock and Roller says, Pat, I don't know a lot of the facts. How do they get all the money? Was it donations? Oh my God Almighty. They made money through three things. They had a fund, the Madeleine Fund, to find Madeleine. They've never found Madeleine. A lot of money went into that fund from well wishers, people who with good hearts who believed that the McCanns, were looking for their child. They hired two different sets of detectives. Both sets of detectives were not quite. They were not. They were sketchy, shall we say? Sketchy as heck. You can go into the whole history of those guys. Sketchy. They had the money to go find proper people. And I'm not saying myself, I did offer. By the way, I did say to the McCanns, look, I will be willing to work with you. If you're innocent of anything, I can have my mind change. I can say, wow, now I see where I was wrong. I will work with you I said pro bono. I said, but if not me, go get yourself an FBI profiler, retired. And I'm not overly fond of FBI profiler methodology. Anybody knows. But hey, go find a retired FBI profiler and hire him, for God's sakes. Or somebody who's good at finding abducted children. There are specific groups, professionals that do that. Why would you hire these two sketchy bunches of supposed PIs? Why? Because you weren't looking for Madeleine. And then a lot of that money that they got, they have never accounted for where that money went to. I know some of it to go for the mortgage on their house. I understand that if they had said 10% of this money is going to support us during this difficult time because we can't work, blah, 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 I don't have a problem with that. But they should have accounted for every single penny that went into that fund. They never did. And people just kept throwing money at them. Kind-hearted, as all get out. I don't know how much money they eventually had, but they got a lot of money through that fund. So that's number one. Number two, they got money through suing the crap out of people. 3, they got money writing the book Madeleine. And that was a bestseller. Kate made money selling that book. So they got money. I'm not saying they were there for the money. They were there, I think, to keep protesting innocence. But they made a lot of money, shall we say. This is, okay, Alicia's asked a question, I think, which is one of those questions very difficult to answer. This is one of the reasons she says here. Let me question about Alicia. Any idea why the Tappas 7 kept quiet? I would have expected someone to talk. This is the number one, I think, reasonable question for if you think that since no one talked, the McCanns must have been innocent and it must be an abduction. This is probably the strongest piece of information to support abduction. I will say that. Why? First of all, I don't think all the Tappas knew what happened. I think that's just not true. I think a few of them may have known what happened, and they also may have done similar things with their children, as far as sedating. They may have had sympathy for the McCanns, thinking, "Oh my God, we all left our kids unattended. Jesus, that could have happened to us too." So I believe, if anything, there's a very small group that know, maybe 2, 3, 4 at the most, not all of the Tappas. Why would they stay quiet forever? Because if they stayed quiet in the beginning, and Scotland Yard is looking at an abduction, Germany is looking at abduction, do you really want to stick your neck out and get it cut off? Because then you're going to be an accessory, or after the fact issue, some kind of accomplice thing at some point in time. And you're going to go down too, and you got a family. So I think as long as there wasn't everybody involved, which I don't think there was, I think there's enough, a couple people that know, that kept quiet, and that's all. Would I put Jane Tanner in that group? 100%. The twins, I feel bad about those poor twins. Are they adults? I think they hit adulthood. They will ask awkward questions or not. They have been raised by their parents and loved by their parents. They have known that their sister disappeared years ago, and that the Scotland Yard believes she was abducted, and now Germany believes she was abducted. And the parents can easily say, "Hey, don't believe everything you see on the internet, especially those nutbirds over there." And I think they're going to believe that their parents. I think they're going to believe their parents. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of time trying to find their parents not to guilty of anything. I think they're going to just assume that their sister was abducted and their parents tried to find her. I don't really have a problem with that. Um, uh, okay, I don't know what this person is saying, but I'll ban that user because they're rude. Let's see. Never be rude on my channel. If sometimes during the comments I get on YouTube, and they're like, Pat Brown, you're an idiot. I don't know why she blocked me. Don't call me an idiot. You can disagree with me, but don't call me an idiot. Um, um, well, Daisy, there's an interesting thing about ego and money. Everybody has agendas, because I've been accused of all of these things. You have a big ego, Pat Brown. You want to make money off the McCanns. Is this case? Blah blah blah. I mean, of course, I have agendas myself. I mean, I have an educational channel. I want people to learn. Do I want to earn a living? Yeah, I do. I do want to earn a living too. So we all have mixed agendas, and I don't object to this guy having some agendas, because he does, and so does every other person. I just don't like people who don't tell the truth, and he's sitting there with that emblazoned on his his little blazer there. And I'm going to say, if you got to do that, probably you're not telling it. It's the eclipse. Nah, people have been nuts for years. This is very true. Amethyst says, oftentimes the media controls the narrative. They do. When the media decided to go 100% McCann supporting, you couldn't get a disagreement. And as a matter of fact, the only time you did, and this is the Australian, I've forgotten, it's been so long. I did a documentary show, and they libeled the heck out of me, because what they did was ask me questions. I answered the questions, and then they put different questions in for my answer, and they libeled it. There was no question about it. And they were putting me up there, as a punching bag. They were still 100% McCann supporting and the abduction theory, but they lied to me in the interview and said they were interested in a professional's viewpoint. No, they weren't. They were making me a punching bag. And I did attempt to sue them. Turned out, in the long run, I was unable to sue in Australia because I didn't make money in Australia. Go figure. It was a very strange thing. So my lawyer finally they said, there's just no way you can do it. I did get some publicity in the UK papers that said Pat Brown suing, and that was cool. But it's very frustrating. And that video is still out there. That makes me look like A, an idiot, and B, that I libeled the McCanns, and I didn't do that. I didn't say what they thought that looks like I said, because they edited it. And so you got to be very careful. The media does have agendas. The media is into making money. Very little of the media cares about the truth anymore, including that guy in the media. But they don't care about the truth. They don't care about facts. They care about the bottom line is financial. And so it's unfortunate, because it really clouds people being able to get information and get proper information. So they do control the narrative, yes. Yeah, I'll say this. I never ever believed that the parents did anything on purpose to Madeleine. Yes, I think they've lived a very difficult life. I think if they are guilty of covering up the death of their daughter by the accidental death of their daughter, if they're guilty of that, and I'm putting an if out there, they still had to deal with trying to keep the cover up going, trying to make sure that the twins didn't get wind of anything, make them look bad. They had to deal. It was a long haul. I think it was harder for Kate than it would be for Jerry. Jerry has some interesting personality issues. I won't psychoanalyze him, but he was I believe, quite controlling of Kate. And he seemed to get more cheap thrills out of being able to go into the media and mocking and getting over than I see in Kate. I think she suffered quite more. That's what we see in the media. Now, in private life, that they spent time with their children and did the normal family things, they might have had a perfectly fine time behind the scenes, but then had to go out every once in a while and deal with this. So I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, I'll tell you that. Um, um, they were. She was turning 4. They were 2. They can't recall anything. There's absolutely no way they can recall anything, Amethyst. And some have speculated they were drugged to sleep heavy that night. The weird thing about that was that after Kate came back, one of the things she did was check on their breathing, which is odd. Unless she thinks, oh my God, what if, if something happened to Madeleine, maybe they also, something happened to them. Let me see if I can find, who is this person that everybody says I should block? I'm trying to see if I can. I don't see any spamming here. I can't find him. Maybe he's already been blocked. But that's why I don't say the open lies are a lot more difficult than Patreon lies. My Patreon lives, which again, click on there if you want to come to those, are very peaceful because people come who support the channel and want to be at the lives are usually interested in education and generally speaking like me. So there's no reason for them to say things that are questionable. Let's see. Court says maybe people who deny parental neglect just want to hide their own neglectful parenting. It's an interesting thing. A lot of people say, well, people make mistakes. And yeah, they do. I mean, neglectful parenting, I'm not saying as parents, we've all probably done something we were less proud of than, it's like you got a whole years and years of parenting and your children drive you nuts one day and you say something inappropriate, or some people will spank a child or God knows what happens, even with people who are good parents. Then there are people who are not so good parents who do things that are more questionable. And then social services shows up. But I think I don't know why they find that hard to understand that that's neglectful. I mean, it absolutely was neglect. There are people who do also question why the Portuguese police never arrested them for neglect. And I've said over and over again, there's a good reason. One is, once your child goes missing in an abduction, that's so much bigger than the neglect thing. And people are going to get really nasty. If you arrest the parents for neglect when the child's been abducted, they're going to get really bent out of shape about that. So it's not good politics there. So, and because the parents are being punished like 500,000 times more than the moment, if you put them in jail for like whatever, a month for neglect, it's not the same. They've already lost, the child's already missing and maybe lost forever. That's pretty much punishment. So that's the way people think. Secondly, if they believe the parents were involved, they were working toward that, not with the child neglect thing. So that's why they just didn't do anything with it. Let's see. Okay, I was not the criminal profiler on the case. Just so you know. No, I'm not. I did not work with the Portuguese police. I did not work for anybody. This was one of the cases where it just became such an interesting case in the media that I started looking at it. And I spoke up about it. I was probably the only criminal profiler who spoke out about this case, because speaking out about the case and saying you didn't believe in the abduction theory wasn't exactly that's people say, oh my God, Pat, you're trying to make money off this case. You want to know how that statement actually got me off of television, not on television. And to many people that proved that I was a crackpot because I didn't believe in the abduction theory. So no, it actually was a harmful thing. But no, I never worked on the case with Gonzalo. He was the detective on the case. And I've never worked with, obviously, with Scotland Yard. I just researched this case on my own over time. I did go eventually, I read Kate's book, wrote my book, went over to Portugal to meet with Gonzalo to get with the concept of writing a new book together, because I thought that would be powerful. That two people that were kind of most prominent people speaking out on the case together would make a difference. But again, we couldn't get anybody to touch that book. I hope that I haven't heard much about the second book. Am I missing something there? I hope he came out with a second book. And it's supposed to be in English. So bully for him if he got that done. I think that would be great. Let's see. Let me see what other useful things you have to say. Wendy in the Sun is trying to ask something, and I don't know what the question is. It gets buried. Yes, one of the problems with oh, here we go. I found it. Oh no, I already answered that one. This is probably true. People always think somebody's going to talk, and a lot of times people never say anything, and they do go to the grave not saying the truth, unless they fall apart. It's possible. Yes. Oh, deception detective. Hi. Oh, I have to drink to you on this one, although that's just Diet Pepsi. Bingo. It's also why much bot activity on the McCann's videos is about Masons and cults. Yeah, absurd. Yes, by the way, I like Deceptions Detectives channel. Go over there and check out some of the things he has analyzed on the McCann case and other cases. Very good stuff. And yeah, but that conspiracy thing just inspires people to such an extent. It's just really sad. And now I'm just going to draw a blank here because I usually do. So I always ask my audience because, okay, the guy everybody says, well, what about so-and-so's videos? Oh, why am I blanking? He did 4 of them. He interviewed Peter Hyatt. Somebody give me his name because I'm blanking on it right now. While you come up with that name for me, thank you, because a lot of people ask me about that. Alan says, I agree with you, Pat, and the dude looks like a mutant Ninja Turtle hero fan. He does look like a turtle. Oh, that's pretty funny. Maybe we can get together with Turtle Boy on the Karen Reed case. Oh, Lord. Yes, that is true. Kate gave some interesting insight into Jerry's personality in her book. Yes, and also Jerry's blogs. I don't know how many of you remember his blogs. They were fascinating and gave me a lot of insight into his personality. Somebody give me the name of a guy I'm trying to remember here. Come on, somebody. What's his name? Thank you, Judith. Okay, Richard D. Hall. Okay, Richard D. Hall came out with a bunch of videos on the Madeleine McCann case, and he's extraordinarily popular, especially in the community, which believes that what he's saying, that nothing happened to her on the day that she was reported missing, but it happened before. Richard D. Hall, his first video came out, and I quite liked it. He interviewed Peter Hyatt, who I totally respect and love. Peter and I go back a long ways, and that was good. I was like, "Oh, this is good stuff." Mind you, Richard D. Hall got a great voice. I mean, like the radio voice, and he's a very good video. He's very good at what he does, piecing everything together. He puts together a very good video. He's talented, 100% talented man, great voice. First video, I was like, I like this. And then he did his second, third, and fourth video, and he went right off the conspiracy cliff. But if you look at other Richard D. Hall stuff, he's a conspiracy theorist in many, many other stuff too. So he did what Richard D. Hall does. My thing is watch his first video and just stop there. And no, the other 3 videos, to my opinion, are damaging to this whole thing. Again, because it's all conspiracy theory nonsense. And he's very good at weaving things together. And this is what a good conspiracy theorist does, to the point where you go, that could be true. Because it's convincing. It can be very convincing if you aren't solid in the facts. I was not convinced. Why? Because I've studied this case for too long to fall for that stuff. But a huge amount of people did. And after his stuff came out, by the way, once upon a time, there was, I forgot which, way back in the day, there was the number of different sites. And I was super popular until I didn't go with the earlier demise theory and didn't go with Richard Hall. And suddenly I became a pariah. All of a sudden, Pat Brown said, people who used to think I had good things to say, they'd all jump to the conspiracy, not all, a portion jumped to the conspiracy theory stuff. And after that, they said that I was refusing to look at the truth. Oh, here's a new Sebastian video. Okay, go check out Peter Hype on that. Yep. Oh yeah, I'm not going to put that one up just because I think YouTube's going to block me on that. But you, so yeah. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Cookie. NDD. Hi from Finland to Pat and DD. Deception Detective. I love both of your channels. So interesting content. Thank you guys. Thank you for that. Let me go back up a little bit and see what other comments you have. Let's try to stay to the Madeleine McCann case and not go off on too many other cases, because therefore, well, without getting sued. I'm not, as people always point out, I'm not a psychologist, nor am I a psychiatrist. However, I've spent a great deal of time seeing people's personalities in different cases. Do they act like people who did the things they say and do after Madeleine went missing? Did it appear to be that they were telling the truth? And the answer to that is no. That they were covering up something. The answer to that is it appeared to be that they were covering up something. Kate, I would believe that both of them were heartbroken. I believe that their statements. You'll have to go look at like my video and check out the stuff I put out in a few weeks if I get it done. My revision of the book, and I'll read the book. They came across as two people who had lost their child permanently. They came across as two people who knew what happened to the child and that the child was not alive. Kate said a lot of very interesting things. She was on the radio once, and she said within days she was able to sleep through the night. And I'm like, yeah, on drugs you might be able to sleep through the night, but how would you sleep through the night? Thinking that considering in her book, she gave a very gruesome scene in her book about what might have happened to her. Yet that came up later. See, I think the book was written later to answer the questions everybody had about everything they'd done before that. So you can't sleep through the night when you think your child is being kept in somebody's in somebody's dungeon, and she's being raped and tortured. You can't sleep through the night. I don't know how you'd possibly do that, unless you know she's already dead and you know she's not being harmed any longer. She's not in pain. She's not calling out mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy. She's not calling that out anymore. So therefore, you're resigned at that point. They came across as resigned to what the situation was. Jerry came across as very controlling, and I believe he controlled whatever happened that night. I don't believe it appears to me that Kate may not have known what happened until she came, till later, because there was a whole scene on the balcony, so this whole scene afterwards where it seemed like she was beating on Jerry, probably when she found out what actually happened. And then they had to do what they had to do. And Jerry, I believe, I find him very cold. I call him a weasel quite often because he looks like one. But I think he's very cold and very controlling. I don't particularly kick cotton to him, shall I say. Doesn't give me a warm feeling here. Kate, I feel a lot more sympathy for. A lot of people were really rude about Kate and the way she looked. In the beginning, I thought Kate was one of the prettiest women I've ever seen. I thought she was very beautiful. She's aged, and we all age. I don't look like I do when I used to do television. People are like, what the hell happened to you, Pat Brown? I'm like, 25 years is what happened to me. And I didn't get Botox or plastic surgery. Kate shows weathering, but she's older. And I don't know if that has anything. So that she's not as beautiful as she was at the day Madeleine went missing is so nonsense to me. She's an older woman. Maybe the suffering has some etching onto her face. It's true, but it's just, hey, that's life. But she was extraordinarily beautiful, in my opinion, at the time Madeleine went missing. She's a pretty lady, almost Madonna looking. I thought she was lovely. Jerry looked like a weasel to me, and I thought he acted like one too. So I think his pure personality I did not particularly like. I found him cold and controlling and manipulative. And I'm not going to put my label on that, but that's what I was saying. And I think Kate did what he said. So that's the closest I can come. The hours of research and dedication, deduction you do, Pat, would never be compensated by book sales. Not in this one. I think, considering, yeah, $2.99 on the book and it got knocked off of Amazon, I'm going to say by the time I went to Portugal and back, the book paid for my vacation in Portugal, if you want to put it that way. I've, the book sales business is a tough business anyway, but but it doesn't matter. If somebody makes money off of putting out a great book, not necessarily mine, I'm just saying other person, and they do a book on a case and they do a great job of it and they earn a good amount of money for it, I don't object. What I object to is when they earn money on something I think is garbage. And when I work, my Cleopatra stuff is more, that hurts. Because I did the Discovery Channel show, Mysterious Death of Cleopatra. And I proved that the snake did not kill Cleopatra. And every one of the historians changed their tune after that. They'd all said the snake did it. And after that, they all said the snake didn't do it. They didn't give me any credit, but they went there. And then I spent the next years, I went back to Egypt. I researched like you wouldn't believe. I bought every book ever in existence on Cleopatra and Romans and shipbuilding and war and everything I could get. And I examined the living heck out of that case. And I wrote my book, the murder of Cleopatra, because I believe she was murdered. I'll tell you what my advance was, $12,000. That money, the advance I got, paid for the trip to Egypt. And I've never made a penny after that. And all the books I bought, I probably lost money on the Cleopatra thing. But there's another woman who put out, she was a Pulitzer Prize winner. She put out a book on Cleopatra at the same time as mine. Every single outlet, the Washington Post, New York Times, they raved about this freaking book. And she stole some stuff from she stole some of my stuff and put it in there. Didn't give me credit. But anyway, she made a fortune. I mean, a fortune. She made a fortune on that book, and her book is still sitting in all the bookstores, what's left of bookstores. And my book hasn't been in a bookstore for years. I'm not bitter. No, it's frustrating sometimes. And it wasn't the money that I was really interested in. I really wanted the story of Cleopatra to get out. And so check out my whole, I did a series on YouTube on Cleopatra, a 10-part series on Cleopatra. From my book, because I wanted at least to get the story out. And money's nice, but sometimes what you want to tell people is nicer. But sometimes it is nice if you get enough money to have dinner after you tell people things. But that's the way things go. There are no winners, really. Yeah, you're right about that, Hillary. Let's see. Okay, this is not censoring. Please understand this. People call this censoring. What they weren't, that wasn't a matter of censoring. If the book is libelous, the publisher should remove the book from the market. You shouldn't be able to say anything about anybody and have that be okay. So if the publisher has the right, that's why they usually have attorneys to review everything. When I did put my book, The Profiler, out, the book actually got put out late because the attorneys are slow doing their job, and it ruined all my publicity. But I'm not bitter. But anyway, but the attorneys went through my entire book. I had to send it tons of documentation that I worked on these cases, and because I didn't want to put out a book that was libelous, even though I used pseudonyms for the whole book, they still wanted to make sure that I wasn't just saying stuff that was ridiculous. And that book's on the market. But Amazon did not pull my book. They did not censor my book. What they decided was these people, Carter Ruck is the biggest libel attorneys in the world. And Amazon wasn't going to take that risk. It was too much, when you're threatened, it's too much. So it's not censoring. It's more our lawsuit system that is at issue here than that anything's being censored. So Gonzalo Amaro's book, the same thing. They threatened the living hell out of him and the publisher, and the book was pulled because it was supposedly libelous. And so now it's back on because it's been deemed not libelous. So it wasn't a matter of censoring. It was a matter of the lawsuit system, shall we say. See what else you got to say here. You might not have much money, but you have an interesting life. I do. I've always been a kind of a simple person, not up here, but simple in the fact that I enjoy a lot of simple things in life. And when I travel, I rarely stay in anything expensive. I go in small Airbnbs. I stay with families. I take local transport because I love cultures in other countries. So I've been able to go. My trips to other countries, if I go for let's say I go for 10 days someplace, it costs me less than $1,000. Or I've gone to India like 4 times and I stayed a month, and I don't, outside of the plane ticket and maybe $500, that's all I spend when I go there. So, I found so many ways to do things. I love street food. I like culture. So, I'm easy going on that kind of stuff. So I don't have a Lexus. I don't want to have a Mazda Miata from 2009. It's the best Mazda Miata there is out there. You put the top down and it's the best driving. But that's fortunate for me. That helps because, it makes life easier. And then if you have a real expensive taste, but yeah, but it also doesn't hurt to earn a living. That's why I've said with YouTube, people say, well, you can just do YouTube, not worry about making any money. But it's like, I'm working 40, 50 hours a week on YouTube because I do a lot of research. And I'm like, I have to eat. If I'm not working another job, this is my job. I do have to earn a living. So, don't knock YouTubers who want to earn a penny. If they've got 10 million views, if you're Mr. Beast, I mean, he's way past just earning a living. This was a weird thing. Yeah. They went to the Pope too. Maybe I'm naive, but since they are religious people, I heard that's almost the worst thing you could do, lie to the Pope. The Pope thing was very strange because they left their other 2 children to go to see the Pope. One of your children has just been abducted. Usually when parents, that's a weird behavior. Usually when parents have a child abducted, those other 2 children are chained to their bodies, metaphorically speaking. And the fact that they left to go speak to the Pope, I think it was just a publicity stunt. That was my opinion on that. And yeah, I don't know who said they lied to the Pope. They said, I don't know, but my holidays are great. What are you talking about? You don't need to send me. I've had a better travel life than most people in this world. I've had so much fun, and I don't go for 5-star hotels. I don't. It bores me. When I worked with the media, a lot of times I would go like to New York or to LA. They put me up in nice hotels, and to me, a hotel was just a hotel. Every single one of those rooms looked exactly the same. They were nice, fancy, but they all looked exactly the same. I love a nice Airbnb. Hey, I went to an Airbnb and I went to a ranch in Mexico. Airbnb ranch, and the owner of the ranch, there's some isolated location. The woman came out with a bottle of tequila and said, "Hey, tequila, anyone?" I'm like, this is more fun than a 5-star hotel. And that night, I crawled in the back of a Pinto with that woman. Remember Pintos with the windows like this? We crawled in the back because there were a lot of people in the Pinto, and we bounced through these dark streets. And the Day of the Dead was going on in the town, and then we got out, and everybody was dressed as skeletons. This woman invited me to all that. And believe me, I paid like $50 for that night. So, no, I have great travel experiences. I sure don't need anything fancy. Yeah, I do. I love life and all of its, all the things that happen in life everywhere in the world. And I find it fascinating. So thank God for that, because it makes me a happy person. They could have. Now there's people who believe they told the local priest that what happened and that he helped hide their child's body. I don't believe that. I do think they might have told him what happened though. He seemed to have had a lot of difficulty dealing with whatever happened in Praia da Luz. I'm just looking for some things. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, as I say, it's some of these comments are interesting. Oh, the issue about leaving the twins in the room after discovering her daughter was taken was she ran back to the tapas bar to say Madeleine's been taken. To leave them completely alone. I don't know. Did she lock the door when she left? I'd like to know that. Did she close the window, lock the door because she claimed the window was open? Close the door, the window, lock the window, close it, and then run back to the tapas, say Madeleine's missing. I'm split on that. If I look at it as a person who doesn't necessarily believe the Madeleines were involved, the McCanns were involved in anything, the tapas bar was not that far away. You could get there in 5 minutes. If you're running, you could get there in 5 minutes or less. You just run like hell. And you got to go out the door and then down the street and then down another like pathway and then into the tapas bar. If my daughter were missing and I thought somebody had her and was running off with her and the kidnapper had already left, I might have run down to the tapas bar and started shrieking. I don't know that I think that's suspicious because a person is in shock and they're in panic. So I'll give her a break on that. I will. That's how I've done that elsewhere. Again, I'm going to finish redoing the book. I'll put that back out in a new updated form, and I will read the book on YouTube. So you can listen to it there. And in that, I explain more about personality issues about the parents. My meeting with Amaral was really nice. I mean, he had been through so much. We met at a lovely little restaurant, and we drank delicious wine and had great Portuguese food. And we just talked for a really, really long time, discussing the possibility of getting this book out. He agreed to do it, and that's why I went back to the United States and worked with my literary agent. I put together a proposal called the Madeleine Mystery by the two of us, and just never took off. So but I found him. He was a very, very, very nice man, very humble. I know we had somebody there to help translate too, and. Yeah, it was a good experience, and I've always thought he was a really good man. And he really, that's a guy, not this guy with the truth on a freaking blazer. I mean, whatever the hell, he's wearing a hoodie. Gonzalo Amaral put his reputation, put his name on the line, put everything on the line, because for what he did want to get out the information, and not just for the money. And he paid dearly. He paid dearly for what he did. So I have a lot of respect for that guy. A lot of respect. I don't know about the beach thing, but definitely near the place called Mont Jose de Mestre. It definitely pinged on the road past that. But pragmatic. Whoever just said that, I just saw it go by. Oh yeah, here we go. Very pragmatic decision. Yes. I like the word pragmatic. If Madeleine, they gave Madeleine some medication, which caused her to either pass away from the medication or to climb up on the sofa and fall behind the sofa and die of positional asphyxiation. They were therefore responsible for her death. There's an interesting place you end up in. And I've seen this with other parents and other people who do things that pragmatically, it may not be the right thing to do, but it's pragmatic. In other words, you step back and say, let me weigh out how much I'm going to lose if I go forward with the truth, and what I can do if I don't go forward with the truth. Does this make more sense? And you weigh it out. And I think if Madeleine was found behind a sofa by Jerry when he came back to do his check, when Kate thought he was watching the footy for a really long time, he's in there and he finds his daughter. This is a scenario. I'm just going to play this out. So he finds her, And he is, I think, a very rather cold-blooded fellow. That's not my opinion. I think he does do very pragmatic things. And under normal circumstances, his pragmatism may be perfectly great, especially if you're in the medical field. I've told the story before, but when my son had a horrible bicycle accident when he was, I think it was 5 or 6, and the surgeon, his eye socket was smashed, and his jaw was like, he couldn't talk. It was a mess. The surgeon sat and talked about my son like my son was an object. He was so cold-blooded. He had a worst bedside manner ever. And he's like, looking forward to the surgery. Like, he couldn't wait to get into my son's face and play with it. And I remember thinking, I want to punch him in the face. But I got pragmatic about it because he was being pragmatic. In other words, do I want good bedside manner, or do I want him to fix my son's face? And looking at this clearly, he's a surgeon who's fascinated with his work, and he may be very cold-blooded about it. He may not have a lot of empathy, but he loves putting together the puzzle. Do I want this guy, or do I want a really sweet guy who pats me on the shoulder and can't fix my son? I chose that guy. And I was like, and he did a great job on my son's face. And he is alive today, and he can talk, and he has his eye, so things are good. So here you have Jerry. Let's assume he did find his daughter dead behind a sofa, where the dogs hit, by the way. One of the five points in my video. What do you do? And this guy is smart. So you got to go through things. What do I do? Do I immediately call 911? I don't know what the 911 in Portugal is, but I call them. They come out, the police come out. They prove that we neglected our children, which is true. We left our children unattended in that vacation flat. And possibly we drugged them. And the child died because we weren't there. And as Jerry once said, he said, my biggest regret is that I wasn't there at the time. At the time what? That she was abducted? No. At the time something happened to her, I couldn't save her. That's what my belief that statement actually meant. So he's sitting there going, okay, if I call the police now, Kate and I can go to prison. What happens to our children? We lose our careers. Our children are taken away from us. All hell is going to break loose. It's going to be the worst thing ever. It's already worked. We've already lost our daughter. We can't bring her back. Just a horrible accident. Can't bring her back. But we can save our other 2 children. We can save ourselves. I think Jerry had the capability of making that decision in a very short period of time, pragmatically. So that I love your word there, because that's it. He looked at it and he said, I have to control the situation. And in my belief, the evidence supports that at that point he took her, removed her from the flat, walked her past the Smith family, and put her somewhere on the Roca Negra in those little, I forgot what they're called. They're things that look like this with sand and crap in them. Anyway, place to put her. And then later on, he found a better place to move her to intern her and essentially bury her. And so that she wouldn't be found. But I can't prove this stuff. People say, well, why aren't they then arrested? Well, because there's no proof of any of this. What I'm saying is the evidence supports that scenario than it supports an abduction. But they can't go to court because they don't have a body. They don't have any proof that McCann's did drug them. They don't have any proof that the Smith sighting was Jerry. They don't have proof. And they took Amaral off the case before he could finish working on it. So there you are. And I don't think this case is ever going to go to court. I think Krishna Bruckner is exactly what he does say, which is just basically a patsy. And eventually that'll just all die off, or he'll just be assumed to be the guy, and that'll be that. I don't know when Scotland Yard, they give him more money again. I don't know when they're going to just stop doing the nonsense they're doing. I don't think the case is ever going to go to court. And I think it's going to remain the way it is. And whether we're going to ever know exactly what happened any day, I don't know if that's true either. And I know people don't like it when I say that, but I am a realist. I'm a pragmatist too, but I'm also a realist. And I'm like, I've had cases I've worked on that I don't have answers for, or I know who did it, but the person was never taken and convicted or even arrested. And I can't even prove that I was right. I just have to accept that people go, oh, see, you didn't know, it wasn't that guy. I never got arrested. I'm like, but that's reality. Life doesn't work as perfectly as we wish. We don't always get the answers. We just don't always get the answers. And I've learned to live with that. I always feel as long as we do our best, that's all we can do. That's a good question. All right. If they had reburied her, do you think they have ever gone back together or separately? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're stupid enough to do that. If she was reburied, and here's what I basically think. There was this whole thing about the McCanns being on the beach later that night. I think there was a moment where, if this is true, that Kate got a chance to say goodbye to Madeleine, hold her in her arms, which is why the dogs hit on her clothing. I think she got a chance, and then that was it. She was put someplace. That I think there's that. Then if she had to be moved because it was more sensible to put her someplace for a permanent location, I think Jerry would have done that alone. I don't think anybody helped. People always got all these people help him. Oh, no. Jerry, I think, is a kind of guy who will take care of business by himself. And he's not going to, if he can, he's going to do it himself so he doesn't involve other people that can talk and point. And so I think he would have done it himself. And he would have told Kate later, I found a place for her. She's properly buried. And that's that. We're never going to go back there because it would be too risky. But I know where she is. And we know, and that's that. I think that would be more logical. But so that's what I think. No, I don't know what one theory she accidentally fell. I've never heard that theory. I don't buy it because she was found behind the couch. I'm sorry, I take that back. She was the dogs hit behind the couch, behind the sofa. And some people thought that something happened to her and then the McCanns hit her behind the sofa. Who does that? Nobody hides a kid behind a sofa. That's nonsensical. So she would have laid there long enough. And there's a whole issue about how soon the dogs can hit on a scent. That becomes really, really, this is one of the things that gets very confusing for people. And over time, they have realized that dogs can hit on a scent way sooner of a cadaver scent, way sooner than they ever thought. And the cadaver dog did hit on behind the sofa and also on their rental car, which came later, which is really interesting. And that's why I think the body was moved from a less safe place to a more secure place. And the blood dog also hit behind the sofa. So it would seem that she fell and there was some level of blood. But nobody's going to hide her behind the sofa on purpose. I mean, that's a stupid place to hide anybody. So nobody's going to do that. So my belief would be if Jerry came back, he goes in the room, she's not there, he's looking around for her, and he looks behind the sofa, and there she is. And that's it. He has to remove her from behind the sofa and put the sofa back. But again, oh yeah, no, well, that's true. Because that guy made a crap load of money. He's been their little spokesperson forever and ever and ever. He's making money off of that. That's his agenda. Yes, the dogs were highly trained. Yes, they were. And from Britain, I'm blanking, but yes, I think so. And everybody says, believe the dogs. They say, why can't that be taken to court? Well, there's a big difference. If the dogs, let's take example, I had that cadaver dog. And I think they're both dead, but very, very well trained. And I took that cadaver dog to the Monte de Jose Maestre area that I think is a great area. And he hit on a spot there. And then you dig up that spot, and lo and behold, there is Madeleine McCann's body. You can take that to court because the dog found the body. But you can't take the information about the dog to court when it didn't find the body. It found an area that it alerted to that a body had been in. The dog can't testify, and you can't prove the dog is 100% right. So that's why I can't go to court. There were times when they were alone. It's not true that they were 100% always with the media behind them. That's just not true. That's what's being promoted constantly. Over time, there were moments. that in the very, very beginning, of course, they could move the body to a temporary place. Then weeks went by. By the time they got the rental vehicle, hire car, they weren't being, it wasn't 24 hours a day. There were time frames in there where there was possibilities of them doing whatever they could wanted to do. So I don't think that's exactly accurate. Let's see. Hi, Derek. I can finally say hello to you live. Hi, Derek. The comment about Kate getting a good night's sleep rubs me the wrong way. It reminds me of Casey Anthony saying that after Kaylee was dead. Oh, is there a second part of this? Where's the second part of it? But she said that after Kaylee was dead. Yeah. And we know, well, except for the jury decision, that Casey Anthony likely did something to her daughter. And she went partying and stuff, because that's what you do when you, after your daughter's disposed of. Anyway, yeah. Again, people act differently. People want to push that. People always act differently. You never know. Maybe they express themselves in a certain way. That's true. And here's the more tricky part. I'll say this. This is a tricky part. If a person is a psychopath and they kill their child, they might act in this way. If a person is a psychopath and they don't kill their child, but really don't care either, they might act in the same way. So you have a problem of non-psychopathic people who have a relative amount of empathy are going to act in a certain way. I think I pointed out way long time ago, and I got attacked for this, like you wouldn't believe, but we had these two little kittens, and apparently, I think it was my daughter who left the dryer door open, and the two little kittens jumped into it, and she went back and slammed the dryer door shut and started it because she had some shoes in there or something. And I remember hearing some thumping, but I thought it was the shoes she put in there. She went back and opened up that door. And this is one of those visions you just never forget in your life. I remember the look on her face as she came into the kitchen. She was probably 8 years old or something like that. This horrified look on her face, just the worst look ever. She could hardly speak. And she pointed to the dryer. Just, When I went there and I found the two dead kittens. And this was on July, I think it was on December 24th. And our family, I still remember this too. It's just funny. I have a lousy memory as it is, but I remember sitting around in a circle with the dead cats, the dead little kittens, and everybody just so upset. And I canceled Christmas. I said, look, we'll do Christmas next week. Because there was no way we're going to get up in the morning and have a good time. I said, we'll postpone it until we can deal with this. And I got a lot of really mean comments like, what kind of mother are you? You canceled Christmas on your kids. I'm like, because we just murdered our two little kittens. It was an accidental death, but it was so horrific because we were animal lovers. It was so horrific for us that the thought of celebrating at that moment just was horrifying to us. So we didn't do it the next day. We said, so that can wait until, enough time passes. So let's say I was a psychopath and well, that's what happens sometimes. Let's have Christmas. I might act that way. So if a psychopath has an accidental death of a child, they may not react the same way as a person who is not a psychopath, and that still not have anything to do with the child. Or if the child were, they may act weird because they don't have the same kind of empathy. So we may misinterpret their involvement in a crime because they're psychopaths anyway. Well, in my opinion, Casey Anthony exhibited psychopathy. But so alone, I can't say that her behaviors over the lack of concern over Kaylee were because she had something to do with the case. However, all the other evidence pointed to the fact that she did something to her daughter, 100%. I believe she drugged her, and then I believe she took tape and put it across her mouth, and that's how she killed her. She taped across her nose and mouth. Once her daughter was drugged, that her daughter would die easily when she couldn't breathe. And then she put a little heart on there. So, loved you. So she was, I believe, exhibited psychopathy. And then that psychopathy also led her to be a murderer. Not proven by a court of law. But yeah, so that's where it gets a little tricky, is that just because a person exhibits a personality disorder doesn't mean they committed the crime. Just means they're possibly capable of committing the crime more so than another person, and that their behaviors, you got to look at everything in totality. The totality of the evidence, which is the physical evidence, the behavioral evidence, the circumstantial evidence, put it all together and say, what does this tell us? In this particular case, I put all the evidence together, and I don't see one shred of an evidence of Madeleine being abducted, and I see a lot of evidence, physical, behavioral, and circumstantial, that points to an accidental death in the apartment and a cover-up. So, Jazia says, I agree. As a surgeon, he will be able to be that detached. Cadaver scent starts to develop in only a few minutes, especially in a warm climate. Yeah, this is one of those scientific things. We see a lot of stuff lately. It's like, believe the science. But then after you believe it for a couple of years, they go, oh, that was junk science. It's like, okay. So science changes all the time. As they do more studies, it changes from here to here to here to here. And sometimes it's heading toward a direction of more accuracy, and sometimes it's not. What do you believe? I, again, go with the totality of the evidence. So I don't just stand on one thing. The dog's hit behind the sofa. Okay, that's interesting. That's not the only thing, though. The other thing is, Jerry said he locked the doors. His first interview, he said he locked the doors. They were locked. I believe that true. Then he changed his story to, oh, yeah, we left the back part open. The doors were locked. That's why they left their kids alone, because they figured nobody could get in to harm them and nobody would get in to steal anything. I don't believe for a minute they left the sliding door open so anybody could come in and out of the apartment where they got kids in there and their stuff. No, don't believe it. I believe Jerry's first statement, which is everything was locked down. So you take the dogs, you take that statement, you take the refusal to look at the Smith sighting, You put all of that together. No sign of abduction, not one shred of proof of abduction of anybody else being outside the apartment, inside the apartment, touching anything. That's what leads me to my conclusions. I determined that the most likely scenario is, although I'm not saying the McCanns are guilty of that, I'm just saying it's my theory. And as Jerry always has said, everybody has the right to purport theories, but we'll sue them for it. So gotta watch out for some. It's a tricky thing. Yes, that would be, well, the neglect. They left them alone. That's a big issue right there. And then sedatives. Yes, that's another issue. There are the many that claim they're covering up sexual abuse. That they wouldn't have covered up just for neglect or just for sedatives. They would only cover up if there was sexual abuse or they sold the child or any of these other theories that are rolling around. That's not enough. I think it's enough. I think neglect and sedatives are enough. And having a dead child in your vacation flat in another country, I can see that's a good reason for covering things up, because you've already lost your child. You can't bring your child back. And you say to yourself, well, I got to do what I got to do. I'll tell you what bothers me. I don't even have so much of a problem with the cover-up. What I had a problem with is the fund, which took money off of people, which is grifting and stealing money from people. And two, the fact that this massive amount of investigation had to go on the behalf of you and what you're saying happened. And of course the vicious assault legally on Gonzalo Amaral. All of these things make me not so happy. I could sort of understand the first part, but when you start doing all the rest of the stuff, I know it's still theoretically supporting what the first part was, but at a certain point, you just, the abuse of other people, it gets extreme. And I'm not okay with that. And maybe if they had taken if they had taken the money they got and given it to other children to be found, if entire money of Kate's books went to finding other people's children, they took nothing from either one of those, I might be a little more soft-hearted, but not so much. Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. And they always say, don't leave the dryer open. Yeah. Oh, I still remember her face. That face will never go away from my head. Yeah. And so she's grown up to be a detective. So she's saving lives and she's putting people away in prison who deserve to be there. She's worked child abuse. She's worked sex crimes. She's worked homicide. She's worked domestics. She's a year from retiring from the police department. She turned out to be a great person and loves animals. And just outside in the yard, we have a donkey, a horse, 2 llamas, 3 alpacas, a goat, chickens, and there's a couple dogs too, and a cat. So she's an animal lover. So thank God she survived that. It was really bad. By the way, if you want to see, you want to put in profiler Pat Brown and pet pig Gwendolyn, you'll see my whole story about my potbelly pig Gwendolyn, who I had for 20 years and became a famous pig. So yeah, we're animal people, but yeah. Here's Jan Davis says, hi, Pat. Yes, I believe it was a mistake that blossomed into kidnapping theories, etc. Why have the British press and Scotland Yard shielded them? Again, it's not them. I think it's more the case of the country than it's the case of them. I don't know they give a crap about the McCanns, quite frankly. And they don't have, I don't believe for a minute they have some huge secret information or work for some secret organization, all this kind of nonsense. They were a couple middle-class doctors. And people, they'll find things. They just add in as all kinds of nonsense. And no, I think it was more of a political issue than anything else. And sometimes when things get out of control, they stay out of control for a really, really long time. That's just the way kind of things go. Thank you, Scorpion. I'm sorry I missed so much of the live. You can get to go back. I love hearing Pat's well thought out and explained theories. I learned so much. I'm glad. That's always my hope with this channel. When I used to do TV, I'd get a soundbite, and a lot of times I didn't get a chance to finish what I wanted to say. And now people say I talk too much. It's true. It's true. That's me. But I do get to really explain things, and I've always been fascinated with understanding things, and so that's why I explain things the way I do. I am proud of my daughter. I'm proud of all my kids. I love all 3 of them. They're grand. And oh, you had your pig for 17 years. Oh, I beat you by 3, but anyway, I got 20 out of her. Oh, that's good. But you must have taken real good care with her, because 17 years is a long time. And with a potbelly pig. I don't know if you had a regular pig or a potbelly, but I had a potbelly. It was 300 pounds, not that small. She scared the crap out of people when they came into my house, and she would come out of the closet where she kept her blankets to sleep in, and all of a sudden, this 300-pound pig would come walking through the house. Some people were not my friends. And then we go to the John Bonet case. That's another case that's just really just dragged on for years and years. And I don't think we're ever going to get an answer on that one either. Some of us believe we know the answer, but we're not going to get the answer. Yeah. Oh, somebody had sold their friend over something. Sonia says the fund is the biggest crime. It's money laundering by deception and carries a longer custodial sentence than the original crime of neglected manslaughter, I believe. Interesting point. And many of us have wondered why they were never taken to task over that fund, because it really did seem to be not used for what they said it was to be used for. Real questionable. And yet somehow, again, they're not ever looked at for that fund? Is it because, again, they know something about somebody and they're big up in I don't think so. I think, again, it's like, look, the McCanns, people, now understand this. There are people who say everybody in the UK knows the McCanns are guilty. That is not true. And what happens is you're in a bit of a fishbowl on the internet. So once you come to a show like mine, you have ideas about what you think. And when you go to a thing that says the McCanns are guilty, some website says McCanns are guilty, you get people that are like-minded. So what happens is you got two sides of this. You got the group that does align with the regular media and says the McCanns are innocent, and you get a lot of people who say that they aren't. But most of that is all just on the internet. It's on the internet in fishbowls on web blogs, websites, and YouTube. But in the major media, 99% of it is, if not 100%, is pro McCann in the sense that they are not guilty, that the child was abducted. The documentary after documentary after documentary after documentary, the McCanns had their child abducted. Now we got Germany saying the child was abducted by Christian Bruckner. So there's a lot of people who only spend time in major media. They believe the McCanns are innocent of any wrongdoing. And that is why the media keeps going down that direction. That's why the government will not interfere, because as long as the whole, the bigger picture of this case presented in the public eye is that the McCanns are innocent of any wrongdoing, and Madeleine was indeed abducted. As long as that stands, nobody's going to jump on the McCanns and do anything mean to them, because it doesn't make them look good. I don't mean the McCanns. I mean the people who are doing the jumping on the McCanns. So that's where things sometimes go. It's amazing. You think, well, what the heck? But yeah. Hi, Ruby. New subscriber. Yay. Wasn't mom an anesthesiologist? I'm supposed to know so much about the McCanns. People understand this. There are people out here, and many of my cases that I discuss, and that's the only case they look at. They look at that day and night, and they get every little detail. And I deal with so many cases. If you look at my playlist on all the cases, I not only have the cases I've worked, but I have all the other cases I've analyzed. And after a while, I can't remember who did what exactly. And some people actually will come back and ask me about a case, for example, that I might have done 2 years ago on not one of my personal cases, but one I analyzed. And they'll ask me why I thought this and that. I don't remember. I would have to go back and listen to my entire show to know what I even said, because it's just too much information. So the answer to this, that was a long answer to the simple question. I don't know. I can't remember what the two of them were. I just know they're doctors. And would she know how much stuff to give a child? Well, of course she should. And there's a lot of questions over what she would have given the child. Issues over what kind of drug, and that drug would have that effect. But the fact that she was checking the breathing of the other two children made me suspect that she was looking at the fact that they were all three medicated, and there were troubles from the days before. The kids were crying and weren't sleeping after they left. They were waking up, and that was the problem. They wanted to have their free time and didn't want to worry about the kids waking up, so that they gave them Calpol or something else. Made sense. Again, we don't know that the Calpol necessarily killed her. It's possible that she had Calpol in her system, was a little bit off balance, climbed up on the sofa to look for her mom and dad, fell behind it and died of positional asphyxiation. There is a possibility that she actually didn't die after they left to go to the tapas, but they were out originally on the I think on the patio having wine. And if they left from there, they might have been outside for quite a while, not worrying about the kids inside, because now they're right there. They can hear if anybody screams. But if she got up and looked looking for them, looked over and fell, she might have actually been dead before they even left the flat, because they were spending time outside. So that gets a little sketchy on the time frame there. But I don't know whether that's what killed her. But if it was in their systems, that would be concerning. If the autopsy was done, they're like, look, she's got this in her system, and then she died while you neglected her. Altogether, it just doesn't come out well. It doesn't. Yes, this is true. Wait, sorry. Wait, I lost it. Okay, people in the UK complain that if they left their kids alone, it is neglect and their kids will be taken away. The British press was brutal and didn't support the McCanns. Originally, this is true. And that's why the McCanns, remember when they fled Portugal? They were all over the McCanns in the beginning because of the neglect issue. Then the McCanns fled Portugal when Kate wouldn't answer any of the questions. They fled Portugal. And then there was the turnaround. And when the turnaround happened, then the press stopped saying mean things about the McCanns. And again, it all comes down to money, in my opinion. I hope that's my first video, not my fist video. Wendy in the Sunset. I didn't have a strong opinion until I saw Pat's first video. I try to put out enough information that you can come to a conclusion based on what evidence exists and the logic of it. Again, I don't require people to agree with me because everybody does have their own opinions, and I don't always convince everybody that my opinion is correct, and that's okay. But I do try to present it in a way that maybe it's something to be able to ruminate over and come to your own conclusions about, and maybe to be a little bit of an argument against a lot of the nonsensical stuff I see coming out, which people love to glom onto because it's much more exciting. Yeah. So, yeah, they did. They fled Portugal. Oh, so sorry. They should have been child. Again, the problem that I'd already just explained why they weren't probably charged with child neglect under the circumstances. They were either suspects and they were working on that, or later on, their child was abducted, and yeah. So they're not everybody charges aren't always given under certain circumstances. It's just there's many times people say, I don't understand why that person didn't get charged for some more minor thing compared to the outcome of what happened. So, yeah. The Smith sighting was around 10 p.m. That's correct. Plain Jane says, yes, a lot of Brits think they're innocent. I did for 16 years, mainly because of the newspapers, and the news is supportive of them. We only get one-sided reporting. Absolutely. So people need to understand that. I know that people on the internet say, oh my God, everybody thinks the McCanns are guilty. No, they don't. I would say there's more people that think they're innocent than they think they're guilty, because the majority of people are getting the major media stuff. And it's all very well scripted. And it's hard to understand that there's more information out there if the information is never presented in the major media. And it isn't. They're very careful not to present it. And the rare times they present any of it, it'll be like what Australia did to me and put me up there as a punching bag to say, ha, she's an idiot. And this guy coming out is probably going to be more of make people who think the McCanns have something to do with it look like idiots. He's going to be the poster boy for McCann detractors, idiots. No. Please understand, I did not investigate in Portugal like that. I did not have the right to do so. I was not a Portuguese investigator. I did not go to any of the people working there and interfere, and I didn't do that. That was not why I was there. I did stay, by the way. I did stay at the location, at the complex, and my actual the rooms I rented actually looked out on the McCanns rental flat, which was pretty interesting. When I got there to Praia de Luz, it was the coldest cold streak they ever had, and it was freezing. There was nobody in that hotel, in the whole complex. It was like nobody was there because it was too cold to even be there. So I got I think it was $50 a night. It was ridiculously cheap. So I was like, okay, I'll stay there. And it turned out I was looking down at the McCann flat. And I was able to walk out to the McCann flat. I did check the windows. I have a video of me with my friend there checking the windows, seeing how the shutters and seeing how they work. I was able to walk around the area and see how narrow the street was. So could Jane could Jane see uh, could Jane see Jerry and Jez and the quote kidnapper on that street and not have them see her or the kidnapper? And the answer to that is no, because it's a very narrow street and at night it's extremely quiet. I was able to see how long it took to get around to things. But no, I did not go and interview people because I felt that was not something I should be involved with. I did look for where Marilyn might be buried, and so I took a road trip and looked at all the different locations that made sense to me. I spent time on the beach to check the signs that I wrote Orca Negra to see whether that was place a body could be put, climbed up. So I have a lot of blogs on that. If I remember, I'll link them, a couple of those below, about searching for her body. It wasn't that I thought I was going to find it, but I wanted to see what possibilities there were. So that, and then I got to meet Gonzalo, and we had our time together. And I got to meet some other wonderful people who, Joanna, who worked on this case for gosh knows how long, and some other wonderful people, Portuguese and British. And so I spent about 3 weeks, I think, in Portugal, and it was a very, very good trip. And so, yeah, but no, I did not do investigating because I didn't have the legal right to do so. Obrigado. Obrigado. That's the only word I know. That's pretty pitiful. Let's see any other comments you have here. What state am I in? I'm in Maryland. I'm a Marylander. I've been here for just outside of Washington, D.C. I've been here for 40 years. 40 years. Oh my God. It's awesome. It's hard to believe. Thank you for another terrific show. I appreciate that, Candy. I respect and appreciate your point of view. I hope that at least I can clarify things and make things more understandable. And I do hope I was starting to work on the redo of the book and everything. And then I've gotten partway through and actually what happened was I was just going to read the book out loud and just do a YouTube thing for people who want to just hear an audio. I started reading it. And I'm like, oh man, this kind of sucks. So I'm like, people are still buying this. I mean, it's not that the information isn't good. I just don't think it was well written. It didn't have an editor. I'm like, man almighty. So so I couldn't keep reading it because it bugged me. So I'm like, okay, I'll just have to edit the book, edit the book, put out a new version of the book. So it's a much better version. And of course, update it to the things I know now. And then I'll reread the new version over. And I just hope I can get that done the next 3 weeks because I thought it'd be nice to put out with the anniversary, shall we say. But I don't know if I can get all that done. So I'm going to try. We'll see how well I do. I'm still working. I got so much work to do. I can't get it all done. Yeah, I'll try to remember to do that. I forget often as soon as I finish the show, but I'll try to remember. Okay, Tracy, she was not sold, and that's all nonsense, and she wasn't murdered. So you got to, go back to the beginning because that's what this guy's going to try to say, and you don't want to do that. I had a great time in Portugal. It was very well received, and people were so nice. But yeah, let's see. Oh, I should make a playlist. Oh yeah, I could do that. I wish I made enough money on YouTube to hire somebody. I don't. So it's a one-woman show, one-woman all operation, not a, it's just, that's why I don't edit either. Cause I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. It's like editing is torture and takes so much work. And I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to just have things that go wrong and just say the heck with it. So I don't edit. I do everything straight through. But yeah, there's so much to do on the show and so many things I want to do. I hope I'm very pleased. I've reached a point at least where I feel like this. I've been here for 3 years now, and I've gotten to the point where at least I can put food on the table. And so I'm looking forward to being able to do this for the number of years to come and be able to do a lot of the other things I want to do with this channel. That's going to be exciting. But probably I got so much work to do, so I can't afford to have an accidental death or any other kind. Thank you very much, Laura. I appreciate it. Oh, Wendy, you're so sweet. Okay. Oh, that's another good point. Yes, let me point this out for all cases. All you have to do is type in Pat and McCann, and they come up. But here's what you do: is you go to the search engine in YouTube, and you put in Profiler Pat Brown, and you put in McCann, and every video I've ever done will come up. And some videos that I did on other channels or in the media will come up. But if you also want to know something about other cases, do the same thing. Put in Profiler Pat Brown in the case you're interested in. I just did the Todd Willingham case, for example. And you could put, let's say you're interested in the Willingham case. You put in Willingham, Profiler Pat Brown, Willingham, and you'll come up with that video. You can put in Pat, whatever, all the cases I've done, such as hundreds of them now. And a lot of people don't, you can go to the playlist and go like this and just check them all out and say, oh, I like that one and I'm interested in that. But if you got something you really want to know about, put it in the search engine, because I don't know how many times I see a comment, hey, Pat, could you analyze this case? I'm like, Maura Murray, already done. Yeah, go check it out. It's already been done. Whatever. And so, but it's easier for me if you just go there and check it out yourself by putting that in the search engine. Profiler Pat Brown and whatever case. But yeah, I do want to do some more playlist stuff. But that's some people want. Can you just have a playlist for Australia cases, UK cases, Canada cases? That's something else I want to do. It's like, if only I had enough time. If only. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you very much from Portugal. Glad you're here. Oh, that's very nice, Rose. I appreciate that. What? Have you reminded that this new book was already launched in May 2? Really? I thought it was coming out recently just coming out. I have never heard about this book coming out earlier. Do you have a link for that? Because if that's true, it's already out. He said it's coming out on May 2nd. I missed that. I mean, I just heard about this thing this morning, and there's so much information out there, and sometimes you miss all of it. Tell me if there's a link, Anne. Let's see. You need an assistant. In a way, Harper, I do, but on the other hand, I'm not very good at directing people to do things and trying to manage. I've never been a person who manages other people very well. That's why I'm divorced. But anyway, I've always worked as an independent contractor. Almost everything, and never worked with an organization because I think that's just kind of who I am. I'm a rather disorganized, but very person of the moment, and I get fascinated with things, and I do that. Some people say I have ADD. Yeah, who knows? Maybe I do. But I do a lot of stream of consciousness stuff when I write and when I do my shows. A lot of research prior to that moment, but I don't know that I can manage anybody else besides myself. I think I'm not capable of doing any more than that. I'm a lot of work. Yes, and absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much. I don't even know what trying to keep anything in control in the chat room. I don't even understand how it's done. So, but thank you very much, Martina. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name still, for doing that and keeping it much. There are a couple people that I have blocked, but I think you did, for the most part, pretty good. Oh, you said they were pretty good. All right. Well, I think you helped out greatly. Truly, truly, thank you for that. I've never had anybody do that job before, but after last time when somebody said, boy, there's a guy in here and he's saying really, really rude things, I'm kind of glad I had you along. So thank you very much. I'm your spiritual sister. Oh, my goodness. I'm not getting an answer from Anne here. I was really curious whether this guy actually put the book out earlier. let's see. Well, that's a way to look at it. ADD and ADHD is not a disease, it's a talent. We put labels on a lot of people these days. I mean, people might want to call me a lot of things, and they have in my lifetime. But I think we're just different personalities. That's what I feel. I think we have different personalities, and each type of personality is useful for different things. My mother loved to make lists, and she liked filing. Oh my God, two things I never want to do in my life. But thank God for her, because there are businesses that she worked for who are highly appreciative of her abilities. They wouldn't want to hire me. I would quit like in 40 minutes. I'd be done. She was so useful to them because she enjoyed doing that, and she helped keep their business, together. So I appreciate everybody's different abilities. I appreciate truckers, because there's a lot of guys out there who can drive for an incredible amount of hours and it doesn't bother them. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I could drive a truck long distance. I'd lose my mind. But I get to eat. I get food that's brought to my home. I get Amazon coming here. But what? Why? Because there are long distance truckers bringing stuff to us. So thank God for the men who can, and the women. There's women out there who can do it too, but it's a very, very male thing, most of it. But there's still females who can drive for hours on end and not lose their minds. So that's a personality thing, which I'm appreciative of people who get up early in the morning and people who can stay up all night long. So I was the person you call at 1 a.m. to go to an emergency room as a medical sign language interpreter when that was my job. And there are other people who do other things that I can't do. So, because that's not my personality. So I love all personalities. That's what makes up the world. It means that we can survive, because if we only had one kind of personality, we'd be doomed. We'd be 100% doomed. Scatterbrained. Really? Okay, well, we'll go like that. It's an interesting point. Unnecessary sedating kids isn't really an accident. You could go with a manslaughter charge on that and say it's not. It wasn't intentional that the child, if they sedated the children and one of them died because the sedation did something. Let's say Madeleine did fall off the back of the couch, and she died of positional asphyxiation. The cause of death would have been positional asphyxiation, but the secondary cause of death would have been sedation. In other words, that contributed to the final cause of death. Therefore, it's not a premeditated homicide. It wasn't even murder, but you could get a manslaughter charge out of that. You could, if you could prove it. But how can you prove it? Madeleine's body has never been found. We don't know what happened to her. We don't have an absolute on that. And in theory, I'll say it in theory, she could have been abducted, even though there's no sign of abduction. And even though all the evidence doesn't point to abduction, even though all the evidence points the other direction, to this day, we cannot say, I cannot prove there wasn't an abduction. But then again, those people on the other side can't prove there is an abduction. And they can't prove that she didn't die of some accidental death to this kind of thing. So that's where we stand, and that's why it's not in court. And the court, people say, well, okay, there's all the circumstantial evidence and stuff. I'm like, okay, they don't have a body. They don't have cause of death. There's no court and no prosecutor in his right mind who's going to pull the McCanns into court, considering especially that Scotland Yard has been saying for all this time it is an abduction. 100% is an abduction, and spending 20 million pounds or dollars or whatever on it. That prosecutor already has that hanging over his head. Unless they find her body. If they find her body, let's say they go up in the location I think is possible she's at, the Monte Jose de Mestre. They're doing some work up there and they come across her body. And it's in a sports bag. Don't we know that sports bag that's missing out of the McCann's flat? She's in a sports bag. You might have something then. You might, to go to court with. But barring that, a complete confession or something like that, it's not going to go to court. They're not going to go to court on circumstantial evidence. It's no prosecutor's that much of an idiot. They're not going to do it. Yes, I think that's reasonable yes. Um, if they found her just there and tried to do CPR and she didn't, no, they called whatever 911 Portugal is, called for help and tried to do CPR, and they arrived and Jerry's trying to do CPR. I said, I'm a doctor, my daughter, they still have to deal with the neglect issue. And then if they found sedation, the drugs in her body, that would be the secondary problem there. They'd have two problems, the neglect and the drugs, if those two were accurate. Now, the neglect was 100% true. There's no way around that. She was neglected. She was left alone to fend for herself. And if she died while fending for herself, somebody's responsible, and that's the McCanns. And then on top of it, if they also gave her medication that caused her to perhaps be less capable of caring for herself at the age of 3, that doesn't help. So, yeah. So that's kind of where it stands. Kelly says, I wouldn't be able to live with a lie for decades. Well, it all depends on who you are and what you're protecting. There's so many that live with lies. It's quite phenomenal. And when everybody says, oh, they would have said, somebody would have said something, somebody would have given a deathbed confession, the answer to that is that's not true. That's what we believe because we think for ourselves that would be true. But you'd be surprised how many people die never saying a word. Yep. Yeah, this they had IVF to have her, so she wasn't an unwanted child. Yeah, it's the whole concept that she was unwanted, all kinds of weird stuff. It's just no. I believe she was a wanted child. I believe they loved her. I believe they loved her and her siblings. I believe that, unfortunately, they made some bad choices, and the first bad choice was leaving their children unattended. And when people say, "Why would you accuse the McCanns of having?" Why would you think they did any of these bad choices? We have proof of one, 100% proof of one of the bad choices, and that's neglect. Leaving your 3 little children completely unattended, alone, in a vacation flat. That is proof of neglect. Doesn't prove you didn't love them, it's just maybe you loved yourself more. And you're loving yourself more meant I want to go have fun with my friends, and I think they'll be fine. And maybe we'll give them a little something to make them sleep because they weren't not happy the night before. But we have proof of neglect. So I'm sorry. If you think I'm being mean to the McCanns, they neglected their children. And I'll stand by that. That I can't get past. These children weren't 9 or 10 years old. They didn't have a phone. You know what I mean? They weren't at an age. At a certain point, it is legal to leave your children alone. The age is much higher now than it used to be. I used to be able to, your kid, 6-year-old used to come home from school and be able to hang out by themselves for 2 hours. Now it's not so low, but by the time they get up, I think it's 9 or 10 now, they can stay home alone. I mean, they can, especially if these days we have cameras in the houses and cameras outside the houses. They have a phone they can call parents on. So you can leave a child. The child does not have to be necessarily babysat when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. So if you're in another country, let's say you're in a hotel, you bring with you you have a 10 and 11-year-old, and you have a lovely hotel room, and you decide at a certain point, you've already taken the kids out for dinner, but you want to go out a little bit later and have, maybe you want a fancier dinner, and down the street, you want to have some drinks. You leave your 2 children, the 10 and 11-year-old, in that room. You leave them with a phone, and you leave them with a locked door. And you go 1 block down the street where you cannot see or hear them to have some drinks. You have the phone with you. You call them up and say, hey, how's everything going? How's everything going? That is okay. That's not neglect. Those are kids who are old enough to stay in the hotel room, watch TV. Now, can theoretically one of them open the door of the hotel room, run out down the hall, go down a staircase and run out of the hotel and get killed or kidnapped? I guess they could. But at a certain point in life, you have to allow your children to have some level of independence. As long as you have a reasonable setup for them, you can't prevent everything in life, but you can be reasonable about it. But 2-year-olds and a 3-year-old should never, ever, ever, ever be left alone. It's even in your own house. You have to leave them alone to some extent. And children have died in their own house in seconds just because they're toddling around and mom goes to the bathroom. And while their mom goes to the bathroom, the kid wraps themselves on a cord on a curtain. Mom gets out of the bathroom, her kid's dead. Those kind of things are horrible accidents. You can't. What are you going to do? I mean, you're watching your kids in your home, and there's those moments can happen. But you don't leave your 2-year-olds and your 3-year-old in your home and go out to the store and go shopping. You don't do that. And that's essentially what the McCanns did. So right there, I have a little less sympathy or empathy for the McCanns, because they did leave their children unattended. And that appalls me to this day. It appalls me. So anyway. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay. That's my last speech. I'll let you all guys go now. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I don't know what this is, but it bugged me. So what you should never do when you're sleeping, because I go to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, and so I never get up before 10. But what I do is sometimes I get up to go to the bathroom, like any person my age does. And when I get back in bed to go back to sleep for the next 2 hours, I make the mistake of doing this. I wonder what's in my email. And I found the email, and I want to thank Christos for sending this to me, that said, hey, did you know that? And here's the information. And then I couldn't go back to sleep. And I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. So here I am. And so never check your email until you really want to get out of bed. That's the clue. Oh, Lord. So I'm not going to go into all the rest of so many things I could go into. But anyway, let me stop here. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Martina, for, I still wish I knew how to pronounce your name properly, for doing the moderating. It certainly helped a lot. So it seemed to be pretty calm considering. But again, most of my lives, my lives for the case analyses are going to be patron only, and my hangouts during the week. So I do 2 shows a week, patron only. And if you want to be involved, please do click the link. It's $5 a month. It supports my channel. I'll get you in the lives. And then also now, if I do public lives now, I do also send a message over to my patrons so they know about it. I was just said, hey, Pat, you should let us know first. I'm like, yeah, I should. So I'll do that. And it's much more peaceful over there. And you're also part of the community. We have little chats during the week, and I answer more questions. And your requests for shows for certain cases will be looked at more thoroughly because you're patrons. But again, I'll point it out. All of my shows are all public. Every single one of them. Once I do my normal live shows, about a week goes by, and then I make them public. And so I want everybody to be able to. I don't want to hide things. I don't like hidden shows. I find that highly annoying. So I know some channels do that. I'm just like, oh, if I don't pay $10 a month, I don't get to see these hidden shows. It doesn't sit right with me. That's everybody's got their own style and their own way. But yes, please do subscribe to the channel. That helps tremendously right there. And check my playlist and check the search engine of YouTube, Profiler Pat Brown, and whatever you're interested in. Join Patreon. And if you're out there, bug me to finish revising my book for the anniversary date. And then I will read the whole book and put that on YouTube. Yeah. But revising the book is not fun. That's the kind of work I hate doing. It's called editing, and I don't like editing. So, but I'm working on it. I'm on chapter 3, so I'm getting there. So anyway, again, thank you all for being here, and I will review his book when it comes out. I will fork that money out. I don't know, 800 pages though. I don't know how far into the book I'll get before I bail, but I will try to save you the money. You know, if it's what I think it's going to be, I don't want you wasting your money on that book. Buy Gonzalo Amaral's book, or buy my $2.99 book when it's revised, or listen to it on YouTube. But I don't know what he's going to charge for that nonsense, but I'm going to think it's going to be hefty. So anyway, I will buy that sucker, and I hate doing it. So don't you do it. See you soon.